All right. Welcome back to another edition of the Horsemen Pro Football Talk podcast. This is our week 16 recap, and we're going to run down the playoff picture. I'm Brad.
This is Zach.
And again, we want to thank you for listening, watching, whatever the case may be. Be sure to show us some love, like, share, and subscribe. Tell all your friends and all that good jazz. You will notice that we are without one this week. FA traveled up north to brave their frozen tundra to visit family for the holidays, and he'll be back today. So he'll do his power rankings, and he will. Zach, I assume you guys are still going to do the Fantasy Central.
Yeah, it's the last week of Fantasy Central, so you should be back for that too.
Yep. And then after that we will look ahead to this week's game, which we're going to kind of do today. There's kind of no way to get around it. With the way things are unfolding. So let's get at it. You want to?
Let's do it.
Okay. So running down through the playoff picture, because that's the only thing that matters. And let's run down real quick the list of teams that have been eliminated. Some of these are obvious, but just real quick. The Jacksonville Jaguars, the New York Jets, the Atlanta Falcons, the Houston Texans, the Philadelphia Eagles have now been eliminated, which surprises me. But I mean, I know mathematically that's the case, but that was a barn burner until the end. The Bengals, the Panthers, the Broncos, the Lions, the Chargers, the 49ers, and the Vikings and the Raiders have all finally been eliminated, even though they were clinging on for dear life, and the New England Patriots. So let's start with a big win. Let's start with the NFC. Let's go with the number one seeded Green Bay Packers. I know that breaks your heart to talk about them.
I know, right?
Big win last night. Real big win.
Yeah, and as a Colts fan, I'm loving it. Aaron Rodgers did what he does. This Packers team looks really, really good. They won 40-14, I believe. They've already clinched the NFC North. They have a 72% chance of securing that number one seed. It was 80%. It's kind of gone down with the way Seattle and New Orleans played over the weekend. But they'll clinch that number one seed next week with a win or a Seattle loss. And they're playing Chicago in a big game for Chicago in Chicago this coming week. So they look good. They're looking like strong Super Bowl contenders right now. Probably one of the hottest teams in the league, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. And I really don't. I mean, they're going into Chicago. It's an interdivision game, but I think this is where Aaron Rodgers takes care of business, and they wrap this one up next week. So I don't think they're in true danger, really. I mean, it's not only a high percentage, but then common sense will tell you they're probably going to lock this one up, and as they should. For everything the Saints are, Packers are just kind of a notch above with what we've seen, especially in the last 6 weeks or so. And not taking anything away from the Saints. Saints are very capable of doing a lot of damage and find themselves in the NFC Championship as well. Which brings us to number two, is the New Orleans Saints. The Packers are at 12-3, number one. The Saints are in second place at 11-4. They had a solid win. They had to beat the Vikings, and that really wasn't too much of an issue. They took care of their business there. We're really not surprised. I mean, we could have come in today, and weirder things have happened, but the Saints are looking pretty good as well to hanging on and getting that number two seed.
Yeah, the biggest thing for me with the Saints is they dropped 52 on the Minnesota Vikings, which I mean Minnesota doesn't have a good defense by any stretch, but 52 points in an NFL game is pretty impressive. And so that just shows that Drew Brees is back. It only took them a week to work out the kinks, and their offense is flying high. They have one of the best defenses in the league. They secured the NFC South with that win, and they have a 21% chance of getting that number one seed. They'll clinch it with a win plus a Green Bay loss plus a Seattle win. So there's a chance they could slide in there to number one. They need some things to happen. I don't see it happening. But as we saw this past weekend, crazy things happen in the league. So you never know.
Yeah, for sure. And I have to comment on this Drew Brees thing. I would love to be able to just pull Drew Brees aside and ask him how much pain he's in.
Oh, he took a couple shots in that game.
Yeah, he did. What a trooper, man, because he's not letting on. And I'm not buying that he's 100%. I'm not buying it.
Oh, not at all.
Refuse. And it makes me respect the guy all that much more, that we're not hearing anything about it. They're just doing what they came to do, and that's why he's a Hall of Famer. So,
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. So in the third position, due to what I consider an upset last night in pretty strong fashion, as much as I hate to say it, the Seahawks took care of business against the Rams last night. The Rams are so inconsistent. Even Troy Aikman was talking last night in the game just about how schizophrenic they are. You never know who's going to show up, and boy, they proved that again last night. They just look terrible.
Yeah, the last couple of weeks they've dropped the ball, which is real surprising because a couple of weeks ago we were saying that they're one of the hottest teams in the league.
Yeah.
But kudos to Seattle for coming in and pulling out the last couple of weeks. They clinched the division with that win last night. They still have a chance at the number 1 seed. If they win plus New Orleans and Green Bay loses, they'll slide up in there. So wouldn't that be something?
Yeah. Yeah, wouldn't that be something? For those listening that don't know, I'm not a big Seattle fan, so it's a tough one to take. But last night they wanted to win, and it was very apparent they wanted to win. And as much as I don't like Pete Carroll, I was just really impressed with the way they came to handle their business last night. So good for them, and we'll see what happens. You're basing on the last few weeks, the way the teams that have put things together and haven't. The Rams don't deserve to be in the playoffs. The 49ers don't deserve to be in the playoffs. The Cardinals don't deserve to be in the playoffs, but the Seattle Seahawks do. So it looks like all is right as far as the NFC West is concerned, in my opinion.
I can agree with that.
Yeah. So, okay, number 5 spot goes to the fluctuating Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They're like you built an airplane in your backyard and you've taken it out in the field and you just get off the ground and you come back down on the ground and you just get off the ground and you come back down and you just seem like you're going to get it together and you just don't, but you're still getting off the ground. And that's what the Bucs have done. They're 10-5. And did they play? Oh yeah. Yeah, they're 10-5 and they just absolutely destroyed the Detroit Lions. Was it 40-7 at halftime?
It was 34
to 7 at halftime.
34-0.
34-0. I mean, that they were on pace for a 68-0 win had they just not changed things up in the end. I know it's the Lions, and the Lions are really struggling. They got a lot of starters out. They got a lot of coaches missing. So I'm not really here to punch on Detroit. They don't need beaten up anymore. But still, in the NFL, you're going against the world's top athletes, and you still put up 34 points in the first half. So maybe they're finally getting it together coming in the last couple of weeks here.
Yeah, we've been waiting on it all season long, it seems like. And I mean, it's tough to tell with this Detroit team because it is Detroit and they were missing coaches. They were missing players due to COVID and all that. But still, Tom Brady in the first half alone had 348 yards and 4 touchdowns. So
crazy.
This offense, if he's playing that well, this offense is playing that well. We know the Bucs are capable of taking down anybody in the league, with the exception of New Orleans Saints. We don't know that because they lost twice, but they very well could. So I would think that this was a warm-up game to take care of the kinks, like we said, and next week will be the same when they face Atlanta. They have no pressure, so they're just going to work on getting stuff together, get people healthy, get ready to go for the playoffs. But if they play this way in the playoffs, they can make a deep run.
Yeah, and it looks like they are probably going to hang on to this 5th spot because they're at 10-5. The next closest team is the Rams. They're at 9-6, right behind them. So the Bucs have Atlanta, and the Rams have a big game with Arizona. And the way the Rams have looked, particularly last night, the Rams are very capable of losing that game. I don't expect Tampa Bay to lose to Atlanta. So Tampa Bay should hang on to this number 5 spot. The next spot, which is the number 4 spot, I know it seems like we skipped over one, but because it's such a weird scenario, and Washington is tied with Dallas for the lead in the division at 6-9, which is just crazy that we're. But we knew we've said it all every week. We knew we were going to keep having this conversation. Right now, they are in the lead of the division, and they beat Dallas, right? So they have the tiebreaker on that.
Yes, I do believe they have the tiebreaker with Dallas. I don't think they have the tiebreaker with the Giants, though.
So the Giants are 5-10. Now the Giants have the Cowboys this week, correct?
Yes.
All right. So this gets really mucky. So Washington is at 6-9, and they have the Eagles. Is that right?
Yep, taking on the Eagles.
Yeah. So the Washington football team is at 6-9. The Cowboys are 6-9. The Giants are 5-10, and the Eagles are eliminated at 4-10, but still could play spoiler here. So this division is still up for grabs.
Yep. If Washington controls their destiny, if they win against the Eagles this weekend, they win the division. When it comes to Dallas and the Giants, whoever wins that game and Washington loses, they will be the division champs.
That's right. That's right. So a lot of changes could happen there. It's kind of hard to keep it straight. Just pay attention, and the TV commentators, and no doubt straighten it out for you all day on Sunday. Do we have any Saturday games this week?
No, it looks like it's all Sunday.
All Sunday. Okay. All right. So the 6th spot goes to the falling Los Angeles Rams, and they are in danger of losing this spot completely. They play the Cardinals. The Cardinals could bump them up, and if the Bears win, the Cardinals win, the Rams are out. Now, fortunately for the Rams, the Bears have the Green Bay Packers. The Cardinals are playing the Rams, aren't they?
Yep.
See, oh no, I've gone cross-eyed.
It's so confusing.
Yeah. So, but it still stands. I mean, if the Cardinals win and the Bears win, the Rams are out. They're eliminated completely. If the Cardinals win, the Rams tie with and the Bears would lose. So the Rams, I guess, would fall to the 7th spot. So the Rams, it looks pretty good for the Rams. I mean, it looks like they're going to get in. I wouldn't say pretty good. I mean, they got a lot of problems they need to get straightened out, don't you think?
Yeah, I would think so. I mean, it's 2 weeks in a row. The last week they lost to the Jets, and then they lost basically the division championship game to Seattle last week. 2 weeks in a row they've had a chance to clinch the playoffs, and they just didn't get it done. They went from a 98% chance of making the playoffs last week to slightly less at 82. They're still in there. They have a good odds. Like you said, they can clinch the playoffs with a win or a Chicago loss. But it's a divisional game against Arizona this week. And, Arizona's fighting for playoff spots. So they're going to be bringing it. And you never know. With the Packers, they could decide to pull their starters and let them rest or what. So they got to go take care of business. It'll be a shame if 3 weeks in a row they lost their chance of making the playoffs, because they, like we said earlier, they were one of the hottest teams in the league at one point.
Yeah, yeah. So if the Bears win and the Rams lose, the Bears are in.
Yeah, the Bears do have the tiebreaker then. Yep.
Okay. All right. So if the Bears lose and the Rams lose and the Bears have the tiebreaker, they're in. So if Arizona wins, they're in, and the Bears are in. But and that's probably going to happen. It looks like Goff. I don't know if you saw the thumb injury last night where he dislocated his thumb and popped it back in on the field. It was pretty nasty. When it came off the helmet, he was getting ready to get sacked, and he was more concerned about his hand. And when a quarterback's worried about his hand more so than his shoulder and his ribs, he's going to the ground. You know it hurt. He popped it back in on the field. He played, but it's that dislocation of that socket. I still have a swollen knuckle, and from that happening when I was a kid, taking one like that, it affects your grip. And the Rams are saying he may not play on Sunday. So if he doesn't play, as bad as they're playing anyway without Goff, I don't think they have much of a chance. So it looks like the Bears are going to go from being 5-0 to being horrible and being out to being back in.
2020 for you.
Yeah, I was going to say that's 2020 thing right there for sure. So, okay. Well, there's our NFC. Anything you want to throw in? I mean, we've covered the teams on the bubble. The Cardinals are 8th. The Cowboys are 9th. And the Giants are 13th, which is funny. They're 13th, but it's actually 13th in the NFC, but they're vying for the division. So, anything you want to
add? No. Well, today, I mean, this is going to be posted a day after we record. It'll be posted on Tuesday, but Dwayne Haskins was released by the Washington football team after his maskless stripper incident a couple of days ago.
I did not hear about this incident. What happened?
Apparently Dwayne Haskins was out at a strip club, and there's a photo surfacing of him with strippers without a mask on, which is definitely
it's okay. I mean, we're not concerned about him being in a club with strippers. I mean, he didn't have a mask on, and that's unacceptable in society.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, you were just basically promoted to the starting quarterback. You're a captain on the team, and I mean, that's not a good. I think this is a second or third COVID violation this year. So you take that, you take his poor play. They stripped him of a captaincy, and then he had a bad game over the weekend. And they released him today. So.
Well, we're all having a pretty shitty 2020, but Dwayne Haskins is having a really bad year, and hopefully in the next couple of days things turn around for him, which only Dwayne Haskins can do. You're not invincible. With that money comes a lot of responsibility, and but if he doesn't want the responsibility, at least he's loaded. So
Yeah, true.
That's too bad. It really, I mean, we're making light of it, but it really is too bad, and really too bad. The Washington's dealing with that. All right, AFC. Number one spot belongs to the Kansas City Chiefs. We talked a couple weeks ago. I brought up the fact that they just kind of snuck up, and you and I talked a little bit yesterday about who do they lose to?
The Raiders.
So yeah, so we were talking yesterday about when they lost to the Raiders. I thought there's two things. You get like first impressions and perceptions, and when they lost to the Raiders and they struggled against a couple other teams, I started in my mind to discount the Chiefs. And as you pointed out yesterday, they are vulnerable. And then I obviously promoted the Raiders, and the Raiders deserve that. They went on a run that they looked pretty good. That's since fizzled out. But then I realized a couple of weeks ago, I was like, damn, the Chiefs have only lost one game, and they are just, even when it's close, they finish it, and when it's not close, they're blowing people out. Patrick Mahomes is just a damn magician. And it's no surprise. Here we are at the end of the season, and they have one loss, and they're going to wrap up the first seed of for the AFC.
Yeah, they already clinched it with that win last week. But I was still kind of surprised that they only pulled out a 3-point win over Atlanta. But like you said, champions overcome adversity, and champions win close games, and that's what they've done all year long. So they're sitting here at 14-1. They wrapped up the number one seed. They got the first round bye. They're playing the Chargers this weekend. They may rest their starters and still come out with a win. But like we said weeks ago when we were doing the picks, that I wasn't going to bet on the Chiefs the rest of the way, and they've proven why. I would definitely say they're Super Bowl favorites at this point.
Yeah, I would say, and I would honestly say at this point, it's and anything could happen. Anything could happen. We're going to talk about the rest of the AFC teams. We've already talked about the NFC teams. The Buccaneers can certainly cause some ripples. The Saints can certainly find themselves in the Super Bowl. We're going to get down to the AFC teams, but all in all, it looks like it may end up being a Chiefs-Packers Super Bowl again.
I would love to see it.
Yeah, it would be a fun game to watch. So, all right, number two, and this one pisses me off. Pittsburgh Steelers at 12-3. Now, look, I've given this a lot of thought. The one thing I can't stand are people complaining that the referees. I hate the conspiracy thing about the referees. I believe, here's what I believe about the conspiracies. Okay, I believe that referees influence games for TV ratings and possibly betting. Now, I don't know that. I know the league's probably involved in the TV ratings. That only makes sense. You're running a business. That only makes sense. And people who think that, if you watch a game, and especially a professional game, and you think that someone isn't intentionally trying to influence the game to make sure that people are watching so they're making more revenue, you're a fool. They're not here to entertain you. They're here to take your money. That's first and foremost. Now, I don't know how far that goes to we're going to make sure this team's in the Super Bowl, this team's in the Super Bowl. I don't know. Now, I do know that if you have a buddy and you have an organization, you have a buddy and he screws up and he comes to you, you're going to be more lenient on him than the guy who's always in the same organization. The guy's always pissing you off and he gets in trouble. That's human nature. So we see that with guys like Jerry Jones and maybe Robert Kraft and Bill Belichick, that kind of thing. And I don't want to get too far off subject. So the other thing is the betting. I don't know that the league's involved in the betting. I don't want to make those accusations, because those are really serious accusations. But if you don't think referees know people who are involved in betting, and there's some chinky stuff going on with individual referees. I mean, we've had NBA officials that have admitted this, so they're human too, and humans are humans, and any group of good humans, you're always going to find one jackass. And I don't think any of that was going on yesterday with the betting or anything like that. I think we had the 1 o'clock game that was probably being broadcast over at least half the nation, and it was going to be a blowout. And it started with the phantom block in the back at the end of the second half, or the end of the first half, that would have put the Colts in scoring position with plenty of time. They could easily kick the field goal. They would have plenty of time to score a touchdown, and they took that away. Then we had what appeared to be a stalled drive by the Pittsburgh Steelers in the second half, and we suddenly have, and we saw this a couple weeks ago with the Colts too, and that it pissed me off then too. When we had like what 5 or 6 holding calls in a row on the same play, and there's an old adage for people who don't know. There's an old adage you can call holding play every play. You can call holding. Somebody's holding somebody. It always happens. You like to see a little bit of discernment of whether it's affecting the play, how bad it is, that kind of thing. So pass interference. There's a pass interference with the ball was tipped. Incidental contact, which will come back and play in a second. The ball was tipped. The Steelers ended up scoring, flipped the momentum pretty good. Then on the flip side of the ball, when the Colts there was incidental contact with the defensive back from the Steelers, there was no call, and Tony Romo called it incidental contact in itself. And then we had the pick six that should have happened. It would have been a pick six. It would at least been an interception, if not a pick six, and the defense or the wide receiver held the defensive back and prevented him from getting it. There was a no call there. So my point
and then there was that towards the end, they would have been a touchdown pass to T.Y. Hilton where the dude shoulder checked him and they didn't call it.
Yeah, exactly. And as well, on one of the Steelers drives, there were back-to-back holding calls out on the left. They threw a quick out on the left-hand side, and the same play back-to-back. And the first play, I don't know who the defensive back was, got up and complained to the referee. We watched it. We said he's holding him. He got up and he complained he was being held. They ran the same play either next time or the time after that, and the same play, and the guy held him again. Neither one of those were called, and they did affect the play because that's where the ball went. It was a quick shot to the left side, and so he could pick up a couple yards and go out of bounds. So here we've just mentioned 6 or 7 calls that heavily influence the game. You're going to get some of those, but you should have gotten half of those. And if there are half of those, it changes the entire complexity of the game. Now, you and I talked about this yesterday as well. People don't understand how much it changes the game. They're like, it's one play. And the example that we talked about was when the Warriors lost a 3-0 lead to LeBron. And, the famous collapse in the NBA Finals. And in that fourth game, Golden State, Curry he got 3 fouls in the first 5 minutes. And then and for most fans, that looks like he just got in foul trouble. But for somebody who, I've coached almost 800 basketball games in my lifetime. So Curry sitting, when he gets 3 fouls, he's sitting. And when he sits, everything changes. Everybody's player rotations change. Everybody. They change strategies. They're putting different people in. It changes the complexity of everything. Even when Curry comes back in, it changes the way he plays because he can't pick up another foul. And so then you go on. The Cavs win that game, which should have been the Warriors. The Cavs win. Now they've got some momentum. All things are equal. Now they come back out when they win the next couple of games. I'm not taking that away from them, but I want that fourth game, those 3 fouls. And so, did an official do that on purpose? Or we don't want to sweep? Or are we trying to get him back out? And that's a conversation for another time. But these calls change the complexity of the game. The Colts score another touchdown at the end of the first half and go up, was it 28-3, 28-0? I don't remember. Anyway, they go up that far, it changes the complexity of the game. Now the Steelers have to do things they don't want to do. Now, with that said, they made the Steelers do what they don't want to do anyway. They made them throw because they couldn't run the damn ball. And they did make them throw, and the Steelers did do a good job of throwing. I'm just saying, with a game with this kind of huge playoff implications, because the Colts losing that game yesterday, they may be out of the playoffs. And a referee should not decide a game, and they did that yesterday.
Yeah, I agree with you. I'm usually not one to complain about the referees, but like you said, there were 4 touchdowns and 1 potential field goal, which could have been possibly a touchdown too. 4 plays that directly affected the Colts' scoring opportunities. I know sometimes bad calls can be like, oh yeah, but they still had to go down and cover 20 yards, score a touchdown, blah, blah, blah. No, these were plays that would have been touchdowns had these plays not been called or not called with the referees. So that's 28 to 31 points that were taken off the board for the Colts, and they only lost by 4. So
Right.
I'm usually, like I said, I'm usually not one to complain about the referees, but they definitely had their hand in this game. It definitely
Intentional or
changed.
not, there's
Yeah.
there's no accusations coming here from anybody.
I mean, if you were making the same kind of calls against the Steelers, it'd be one thing, but they weren't. They weren't
Right.
making obvious calls, which just amplifies that even more. And it's pretty suspect to me. I do think that referees influence games in subtle ways by making certain calls at certain times. They are employees of the league, and like you said, it is a business, and the NFL's job is to make money. So I do believe that there is some influence there. Whatever motive it was, whether it was to keep a competitive game since the majority of the country was watching it, I don't know. But it is what it is. With that, the Steelers moved from number 3 to number 2 with the win, which they could potentially slide back to number 3 if Buffalo wins tonight. And next week they play at Cleveland in a must-win game for Cleveland. So it'll be interesting to see how this ends up.
It'll be real interesting. I don't have any confidence in the Browns after what happened yesterday. I think we could probably pull all of our clips from this year, and that is, I don't know how many times I've said that this year about a team. But the Browns yesterday, that was just what a disaster. But it is an interdivision game, so who knows? I don't know. So anyway, they're at second. They're at 12-3. They're they clinched their division. The Bills are in third at 11-3. They have the AFC East locked up.
They're playing against New England tonight, and then Week 17 they're versus Miami.
Yeah, so I fully expect the Bills to beat the Patriots tonight. I'll stop short of a guarantee. They should beat the Patriots tonight. They will beat the Patriots tonight. They should beat the Dolphins next week. We'll get into that in a minute when we talk about the Dolphins a little more. The Bills have proven they belong here. I'm stuttering a lot, and that's because that's just what I want to say. The Bills have proven they belong here. I know Hefe was really on board with them at the beginning, and I wasn't so much. I wanted to wait and see what happened. We talked about with the AFC East. I picked the Dolphins to win the AFC East. Hefe picked the Bills. You picked the Bills too, right?
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah. I held out, but and they struggled throughout the middle of the year, but they look like they've really gotten it together tonight. They should put on a clinic tonight.
Yeah, I'm expecting a big win here. Patriots, they're just not a good football team. Even if the defense steps up, they can't. Their offense can't get moving. The Bills' defense is good too. Josh Allen's playing lights out. So I expect them to get the win here, move back up into number 2, and hopefully they'll show up to play the Dolphins, so the Colts could get in next week with the Miami loss.
Yeah. Well, that hurts my heart. But yeah. Well, let's move into number 4. Let's go to the Tennessee Titans. Really took one last night on the chin with the Green Bay Packers, and they're going into Houston this week. Now, the Titans should beat the Texans, but it's an interdivision game, and they're on the road in Houston. And J.J. Watt's fired up, calling his teammates out. That could backfire, and J.J. Watt could retire. The guys could be like, "Who are you?" Old guy, kind of that thing. It could cause some dissension in the locker room is what I'm getting at. Or he could really fire some young guys up, and they could pull their head out of their ass for the last game and really surprise the Tennessee Titans. And I, for one, am praying that happens.
Yeah, I think he's going to get this locker room together, pull them together. Should be a good game next week. I think the Texans are more than capable of winning. The Titans, by the numbers, should be able to win that game. This past week, like you said, they lost 14-40 against Green Bay, which surprisingly, the Packers held Derrick Henry under 100 yards. So that's why the offense couldn't really move the ball. Tannehill didn't have a good game either. He was 11 for 24, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions. But yeah, right now the Titans are tied with Indianapolis first in the AFC South. They have the tiebreaker. They have an 84% chance of winning the division. They'll clinch it with a win or Indianapolis loss. But they have a 95% chance of making the playoffs. They'll clinch that with a Baltimore or a Miami loss or Indianapolis loss too. So their chances look good, but I'm really hoping that the Texans can beat them.
Yeah, I am too. And for anyone following along, listening, don't try to keep track of this AFC race because these these last four spots, there are 5 teams trying to get in, and they are all locked up at 10-5, and it's going to be almost impossible until it starts to really sort itself out on Sunday. And with that said, the number 5 spot is currently with the Miami Dolphins. They got a big win against the Raiders yesterday, much needed win against the Raiders, and they have a really tough game against the Bills. And we said the 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th and 8th spots are all at 10-5. The Dolphins, they really need to figure it out and really win this game to make sure to secure their future.
Yeah, it was a huge game the other night against Las Vegas, which I hope everybody was able to catch it because it was just absolutely amazing and how quickly both teams were driving down the field towards the end to score and win the game. But they control their destiny. They have an 85% shot at making the playoffs. Last week, it was only 47. So this win against the Raiders was monumental. They can clinch the playoffs with a win, or Baltimore, or Cleveland, or Indianapolis loss. So they have many outs there. It's looking good for the Dolphins. My only thing for them is play Fitzpatrick from the get-go. He is what saved your playoff chances last week because the Miami Dolphins offense could not get the ball moving with Tua. Fitzmagic came in, drove down, I think, 3 times, 2 touchdowns, a field goal to win the game. You got to play Fitzmagic. I mean, we talked about this. If you can play both of them, they both bring different capabilities for your offense, so you can play both of them. But the main guy, if you want to score points for this offense, is Ryan Fitzpatrick.
Yeah. The interesting thing is that there's a newspaper article in the Miami newspaper yesterday. Their sports writer who was like, "It's finally time to start Fitzpatrick." And again, I was like, "Hello." I mean, it's what we've been talking about for 6 weeks, that he's creating a quarterback controversy unnecessarily. The kid didn't expect to play till next year. You got a team that's winning. Keep winning. Deal with next year in the offseason. And we've tried to speculate that he was looking forward to next year getting the kid in. And Tua got in and looked good the first couple games. But now they got game film. He's young. He's got to work his way out of it, and which is all part of the process, except for you're sacrificing your season. And that isn't cool, man. At this point, I mean, they've got good draft picks coming with the Texans. So that's wrapped up. They're not going to get good draft picks off their record because they're doing so well. So that's a wash. Go for the gusto. You never know what can happen. This Miami Dolphins team, if Fitzpatrick plays well, now I say that because Fitzpatrick can get rattled and he can start throwing pick sixes all over the damn place. But when Fitzpatrick is playing well, he's one of the top quarterbacks in the league. And I'll say that every time. I won't back down from that at all. This defense is good enough, and Fitzpatrick can play well enough, and Flores is smart enough. I'm so in this guy's corner. I can't begin to tell you. This team can win a Super Bowl. All it takes is a couple breaks your way, and you find yourself in the AFC Championship. And now it's make it or break it. You got 4 quarters to get in, and he's screwing around, man. And so I agree with you at this point. Now, when it first happened, I disagreed that they should put Tua in. The longer Tua played, the more I was like, well, you've made your decision. The quarterback controversy is the last thing you need. You split the locker room once. You split it, but I'm at the point now where this team, if we were talking about the Raiders or the Cardinals or one of those teams, this would be a different conversation because they can't win. But damn it, this Miami Dolphins team can win in the postseason. So I agree with you. Let's go with Fitzpatrick. And you and I talked about this yesterday. You said that Tua, I didn't watch the game, unfortunately. You said that Tua was celebrating Fitzpatrick after he got yanked and Fitzpatrick came in, that Tua was celebrating with Fitzpatrick when he's scoring touchdowns. Now, if you've got that kind of a player in Fitzpatrick and you've got that kind of a player in Tua where they both just want to win and they're going to support each other, it. Sit the kid and go with the guy that you came with, win some damn games, and pull it together in the offseason. Just the way I know we agree on that. So yep. I hope that's what they're going to do. It appears he's going to go with Tua. But
yeah, we'll see. I mean, if he is going to go with Tua and it's not going well before it gets too late, they need to put Fitzpatrick in because this is a must-win game against Buffalo.
Yeah, it is. It really is. And the odds are stacked against them because right now Buffalo's playing better than Miami is. Slightly better because their offense, the Buffalo's offense is almost unstoppable. And it's Miami's defense that is crazy. I don't know that they can slow the Buffalo down the offense down enough if they don't have an offense putting points on the board. It's the only reason I say that. And maybe, like you said, like I was just talking about, maybe these guys are cool with it. Maybe everybody's cool with it. Maybe he's got them all bought in that they're like, we're going to start with Tua. If it doesn't go well, we'll go with Fitzpatrick. And everybody's like, okay, let's do it, including Tua and Fitzpatrick. If that's the case, then kudos to Brian Flores. He's got his shit together more than I thought he did. And I'm one of his biggest fans. So we'll see what happens. I just hate to see the Colts or the Miami Dolphins not make this playoff field, because both these teams are good enough to find themselves in the AFC Championship.
Absolutely. I agree.
All right. So number 6 is the Baltimore Ravens, who they are moving up. They've moved up 2 spots. They appear, as you said the other day, they appear to finally be the Baltimore Ravens team we've been waiting for.
Yeah, it took almost all season, but I believe that they're here. They started off really hot against the Giants over the weekend. They ended up winning 27-13, but they have a 90% chance of making the playoffs now. They're sitting in the number 6 spot. They'll clinch it with a win or a Cleveland or Indianapolis loss, and they have the Bengals, who the Bengals have routed off 2 straight wins, so you never know there, but I would anticipate the way the Ravens are playing that they'll easily take care of the Bengals this week and secure their spot.
Yeah, I don't see the Bengals. I don't see the Bengals beating the Ravens. I mean, the Steelers is one thing, and they got a big win against the Texans. I don't see the Ravens. I know you don't either. I know you're just saying they got 2 wins, and it's probable it's interdivision, but I fully expect the Ravens to take care of the business, and they'll move up. Actually, they'll probably, because Miami is probably not going to win, so Baltimore will probably move up to the 5th spot. So let's not beat that to death. Let's move to number 7, which is the Browns, who are actually falling. This is if Miami or Indianapolis does not make the playoffs and Cleveland does, I'm going to be pissed. And we've been up and down. So a couple weeks ago, I was like, hey, I've been reluctant about the Browns all year. I know Hefe was really big on the Browns, and they've had some big wins. And a couple weeks ago, especially when they beat the Colts, I was like, hey, okay, I get it. They're good. And then you turn around and lose to the Jets, man. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, in their defense, they were missing almost their entire receiving core. I think they had one guy that was on the active roster that wasn't out due to COVID or contact tracing. So they had to elevate some practice guys, sign them up. So you were missing a lot of weapons on that offense. But still, it's the New York Jets. I know they came up with a big upset win last week against the Rams. But in a game like this, you would anticipate your defense to step it up. You have Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb still. They should have been able to do something. So I think the Browns should have won that game. It's just like the Browns to not win that game. But you were missing most of your wide receivers. But even still, they're still sitting there at number 7. They can clinch the playoffs with a win or Indianapolis loss or a Tennessee loss plus a Baltimore win plus an Indianapolis win plus a Miami win. So all they got to do is just win. But it's going to be a hard game because they have the Steelers coming up. So,
yeah, interdivision game against the Steelers, and the Steelers are vulnerable. Steelers should have gotten beat yesterday. They should have been their 4th loss in a row. So the Browns very well can win this game, and if they do, if they win, you said that. I mean, you gave me like 8 instances. If they win, they're in, right?
Yeah, they can win it with a win.
Yeah, because they get the tiebreaker of the Colts.
Yeah, or Indianapolis loss, or Tennessee loss plus a Baltimore win plus an Indianapolis win plus a Miami win.
Okay. All right. 8th spot is Indianapolis Colts, who have done a lot of really good things this year. The 2 things they've done to really screw everything up is, 1, lose to the Jacksonville Jaguars in week 1. That's a monkey that is riding their back all season long. The second thing they've done is just happen to lose to the 3 teams they're fighting for a spot in to get up here. And 4, including the Steelers. And I mean, they got the Titans, the Ravens, and the Browns. And so they're in a lot of trouble as far as that's concerned. They need these teams to lose. Hopefully, I don't want to root for the Steelers, but I guess we need the Steelers to beat the Browns, right?
Yeah, it's looking that way. And it's really unfortunate that the Colts are in this situation because they are such a talented and well-coached football team. And we talk about it every single week that they're more than capable of beating anybody and making a deep run in the playoffs, especially with this defense. Phillip Rivers has been playing phenomenal. I know he made a couple of mistakes, but he was just trying to make a play at the end of the game because you're
Agreed.
losing.
Agreed.
So if they don't make the playoffs, it's going to be a real shame because I definitely believe they deserve to be there. But like you said, the loss to the Browns, the Ravens, the Titans, and even the Steelers for that matter, and the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Yeah, they don't lose to Jacksonville. We're not even having this conversation.
Yeah, true.
And they shouldn't have lost to Jacksonville, and everybody knows it. But it was week one, and I'm going to say it one more time. You don't put interdivision games in week one. I don't know who the jackass that made the schedule was, but you don't put divisional games in week one. You just don't do it. And this is why right here.
Yep.
So anyway, the Colts are in the trick bag. They need some help. I guess I'm eating my words because one of the things I always say is if you have to depend on someone else to lose for you to get in the playoffs, you probably don't belong there. And I completely disagree about the Indianapolis Colts. So there you go. I've been wrong more times in 2020 than I've been my entire life. It's a weird feeling.
Yeah, but I mean the good thing for the Colts is that they still have a 71% chance of making the playoffs. Last week it was 88, so it's gone down 17%. But 71% is still a high number. It's better than the Browns' chances. The Browns have a 60% chance. The Colts, they have Jacksonville. They have the worst team in the league. So that should be a redemption win from their week one loss there. And all they need to do is just have Tennessee, Baltimore, Cleveland, or Miami screw up and lose their game, and they'll get in there. But like you said, they're not controlling their own destiny. You have to rely on somebody else. So tough situation to be in.
Yeah. But the reality is that when you look at between the Dolphins, Ravens, and Browns, one of those three teams is going to lose. It could be any of them. I'm going to guess that it's probably, if I had to rank them, probably Miami, then Cleveland, and then Baltimore. But the odds of all three of those teams winning those games are good. The Colts should not only beat Jacksonville, but just because of what happened in week one, they should come in and just kick the absolute shit out of them, just for good measure, to put that argument to rest forever. I don't know if they will, but so I think they're going to get in. The thing is that if the Browns win, which there's a good possibility they might, and the Ravens win, and the Dolphins lose the Bills, which is a good possibility, and the Colts beat the Jags, then the Dolphins are out, and I don't think they should be out either. So that's the conundrum I'm in, and not just because I'm a Dolphins fan. I would feel the same way if it was the Ravens being knocked out. If we have to pick these four teams of the Dolphins, the Ravens, the Browns, and the Colts, the one that, in my opinion, doesn't belong there is the Browns.
I agree.
Which is saying something because the Browns have shown. I mean, they beat the Colts. They've shown that they're a good football team. But I think with these four, these are the three I think would be there. But nobody asked me, and I don't have any influence over that. If I did, I would have picked up the phone, and the calls would have gone the other way at the Steelers game, and we would have had a whole segment cut out of this broadcast. So,
well, I mean, we could just avoid all that, and the Colts win, and Tennessee loses, and that just solves everything.
That solves everything. So let's back up and look at this again. So if Tennessee loses to the Texans, and the Dolphins, Ravens, Browns, and Colts win, then Tennessee's out.
Yeah, Tennessee.
Yeah, they would go to 10. They would go to 10-6. Everybody else would go to 11-5, and they would be out.
Yeah, all it takes is Baltimore and Miami to win, and they'll be out with a loss and an Indianapolis win.
So there we go. We wasted all this time. We should have just started with that and wrapped this up in about 10 minutes, and we'd all been good. All right. Anything final you want to say?
No, we've been saying it for weeks now that this, we saw this coming, how crazy it was going to be. And I'm glad week 17 is right around the corner, and we're going to see all the craziness happen before our eyes, and see how this playoffs, whoever it is, this AFC bracket is loaded a lot better than the NFC. I know we've said this as well, but it's going to be crazy and interesting to see who ends up coming out of the AFC and who ends up winning the Super Bowl, for that matter.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Because when we look at the things overall, and just because I don't like Seattle, it's not really Seattle. I just don't like their coach. I don't think they have enough to make it to the Super Bowl. I think if we're talking about NFC teams, we have the Packers, the Saints, and the Buccaneers, and I think that it drops off the table. The Seahawks are a long shot at that point. But when we run down the AFC, I mean, the team in the number 2 spot is probably my least favorite, the Steelers, to make it to the Super Bowl. The Chiefs can win it. The Bills can. I don't want to say win the Super Bowl. They can make it to the Super Bowl. Let's say the AFC Championship game. The Chiefs can be there. The Bills can be there. The Titans can be there. The Dolphins can be there. The Ravens can be there. The Colts can be there. And maybe even the Browns. Maybe there's an argument for the Browns. So, I mean, you're absolutely right. There are eight contenders in the AFC where in my opinion, there's only 3 in the NFC. And so, unfortunately, I was going to say, if you don't watch football, you probably ought to, until the playoffs, this is the week to start watching because the playoffs have officially started, really. All right, so we want to remind you that every Wednesday, Hefe puts out his weekly power rankings. Please be sure to check that out on our Facebook and Twitter pages. It's at Horsemen Sports. You can also find the link to the Fantasy Central, which will be the last episode that they're going to do this week. And then we're going to be back here again on Thursday. We're going to go through the picks, kind of get a little more in depth than we did today. The guru will be back, and he'll go into great detail about what to expect with your teams this week. He's like Rain Man with his stats. He just rattles that stuff off. I don't know where he gets it, but we're glad to have him around for that reason, for a lot of reasons, but that reason in particular for this week. So you want to check that out as we go through and pick the games for this week. And of course, I've already said that. And until then, thanks for joining us. Enjoy the games, and we'll see you Thursday.